Hello, and welcome to Havoc Wargaming, dedicated to bringing you the uncommon. For those of you who haven't met me, my name is Ron, and today we're going to do a how to play and after action report of Baron's War. So let's get started. Baron's War is a new game by Andy Hobday. I'm going to mention before we begin, I'm not using the Paul Hicks figures for this. I'm using figures by the Perry brothers for the War of the Roses line. The Paul Hicks figures are gorgeous. I have them. I just don't have them painted and in numbers yet to play a game. We're going to be using the stats for Baron's War, but using figures for War of the Roses. So just wanted to explain that before we get started. I didn't want to keep holding off doing this video. I can't find any Baron's War videos on how to play the game on YouTube presently, and I wanted to get something out there, so I didn't want to keep waiting until I could get the figures painted. Also, I'm trying to balance on my page between historic war games and some of the fantasy and adventure wargaming that I do in normal that kind of tabletop gaming. So I'm trying to find a balance where I'm doing a little bit of both to keep you interested in and to please you in what I'm doing. So here we are, game of Baron's War using War of the Roses figures. Let's go to the gaming table. So this is the battlefield. This is the small market town of Chipping under Oakwood. And what's happened is the forces of Baron de Crosby, fighting for the Royalist side, have come into the Earl of Oxford's side, who are fighting with the rebels. They hate each other, and the particular scenario that we're engaged in is based on that entirely. There are 15 different scenarios in the game. The game calls for the opponents rolling off against each other and then the winner picking. Because I'm playing by myself, what I decided to do is just roll on a d20, ignoring any results of 16 to 20. And what I got was Hero Slayer. So instead of having objectives that we're fighting for here, the two are looking at destroying retinues and getting points based on the value of the retinues, specifically, and most importantly, each other's commanders. That is the Baron de Crosby just there, and Oxford, who is right here. This is basically a meeting engagement based on destroying of each side. Now in the book, there's also a deployment zone. Again, that is meant to be chosen by a side. I used a random roll, and what I got was a particularly dangerous deployment zone where each side deploys in triangles, meeting in the middle, which is why my two main bodies are already nearly in each other's faces. We're playing at just around 820 points. The average size of this game is supposed to be 1,000 points. The game requires that every foot group have at least 3 figures in it, and every horse group have at least 2. Coherency requires the groups to all be within 2 inches of their central person. That's a little rough with big 12-man groups. Oxford's command, it's here, a body of foot knights. He's also including a bannerman, a musician, and a priest. Opponents, likewise, his main group is here. He also has a bannerman and a musician. This body here is spearmen upgraded to bills. They're regulars. The levy here are green. They're peasants and armed with two-handed improvised weapons. That's going to be a weak unit, I'm sure. And then over here I have a group of regular bowmen. They've been upgraded to leather armor. Everybody in my group except for the levy have at least some armor. Baron von Crosby's, I mentioned right there in the middle, is his foot knights. He's only got 6. He's got half as many I do, which is going to make this a particularly dangerous game, I think. His are veterans, though, as well. He also has green bowmen. It's a requirement of the game that at least 10% of your retinue be green. I put mine in the levy, which is probably dangerous. He put his in the bow, which are all hidden in that field back there. He's also got 4 mounted knights. Those are regular knights. They're over by the building in the corner, the house there in the corner. There's also 10 bills. They're in reserve back here. They're also regular. Veteran crossbowmen who are waiting here to come out and provide cover. Those are forests on either side there. The rest of the buildings, walls, they work like they do in most games, will talk about that if we cover into any of them. And the game begins, the first turn will begin with the roll for initiative. The blue die here, these are two D10s, you just have to outroll the opponent. You can use command dice to affect this roll. I don't know if I want to do that right now, but for each of your command actions your officer decides to spend, he can increase the die roll by an additional D10. Then he takes the highest D10 that he rolls. I've never played this. I'm playing it for the first time while we talk on this video, and I'm not really sure how the command points are going to unfold, and I don't know if I want to spend them all right now. I also don't know what I want to do with that. So the blue is going to be for Oxford. The red is going to be for Crosby. Crosby has initiative. Now what initiative means is he can decide whether he wants to go first or whether he wants to wait and respond to Oxford's actions. Yeah, I'm going to let Oxford go first. Oxford himself has 3 actions. That would be for his command group itself, the knights there, or he can apply them to people within his command range. What that basically means is he commands them to take an action. After we roll for initiative, the second phase of any turn is compulsory moves, compulsory action phases. That deals with those figures that are out of command. Usually that's going to be groups that are affecting various morale rolls or something to that effect. None of that, of course, has happened yet in the game, so we'll go straight to the action phase. Most groups have 1 action. Commanders have multiple actions. They can assign those actions with an action token being placed next to the group to show that they have taken that action. The opponent will have an opportunity to react to those actions. So the actions, the standard action and reactions, consist of move, where your group moves or runs. Combat, your group charges into a melee attack or commits to a ranged attack. Defend, a defensive action, taking cover. Command, commanders can use their actions to give orders to other groups. That's what I was talking about earlier. Ability, traits, gifts, skills by another name with special abilities or actions. So those are the actual actions themselves. I think what we want to do is combat. I think we want to charge into combat is give this command a group to charge into combat. Their movement is only 4 inches, so they got a bit of a way to go to run down that road to get to the opponent. Now the opponent can now determine a reaction activation. The choice is to fight back in response of a melee attack or return fire in response to ranged attack. Neither of those are happening exactly. Defend, a defensive action, taking cover. Actually, combat is the one we would call this. Fight back in response to a melee attack or return fire. A defensive attack taking cover is needed where there isn't any. Shields up. Commanders can use their actions to give orders to the group as a reaction, so he can use his command abilities there as well. Reactions are triggered in response to an opponent's action. Only the eligible reaction can be carried out if the group has an action available. So we do. So I think the response here is to do a combat. So they're going to do a combat as well. And that's going to take us directly into combat. Okay, the rules of combat, there are 2 types of combat action, range attack and melee. This is obviously a melee. It's going to be based upon what their attack number is. We have to go through a process. So the first thing we've done is we've declared the attack. The group that's going to attack is my knights, attacking those knights there. They have to check for line of sight. They have to be in line of sight, or at least one of them has to be in line of sight of at least one of them. We certainly have that. We measure the range between the 2 groups. So the range is 6 inches. The warriors must have line of sight for melee attacks. The charge distance can't be greater than the group movement rate plus 6. Their movement rate is 4, so charge up to 10. The defender has declared their reaction. They declare whether or not they intend to use an action to react to the attack, which they are doing with a resolve, with a combat. They could have chosen to defend, or they could have returned fire, but they are attacking back. Those are the 3 sites they have. Now, we check the number of individual warriors that have line of sight to the defending group. They all do. If they didn't, their dice would not be accounted in the attack. So we determine the charge. If the distance between the 2 groups is less than their movement, we wouldn't have to do anything. We'd still have to roll because a 1 still causes you problems. But when the distance is greater than the group, we have to roll additional d6. and then we're going to add to the movement. And this is where this might have been a little risky. I may not actually make it to the other side, but we'll do what we can. So I've rolled a 4. That means we have 8 inches. That's fine. We can certainly do that. We don't have any morale issues yet. We are now allowed to shout charge and move their group in base to base with the attendant target. As part of this move, at least one of the attacking warriors must be able to reach a defending warrior. This charge is similar to the run move from the movement section and follows the same rules, so it has to be straight and has to be line of sight and all of those things that have already been worked in. So we move the first one towards the enemy. He doesn't actually have to reach base to base with the enemy. Charge the remaining warriors of the group individually using the same maximum charge range for all, and at least one warrior must reach base to base contact with an enemy. They have to maintain group coherency still, if we can. It does not have to stay into coherency. It can carry out melee even if members lose coherency during the charge, though it loses an attack die if they are out of coherency. So let's go ahead and move. We made that roll 4 plus our 4 movements, so we get to go up to 8 inches. So those guys have all closed into that fight. We generate attack dice. The warriors count the melee if they're in base-to-base contact with the enemy. That is not everybody. Attack score is 3 or higher. That is really good. So this is step 7. We roll hits. We need 3s or higher. Wow. Only 1 misses. That's 7 hits. So their defense, this is going to be based on their armor. They have to roll 5 or higher. So I roll all of those hits. Anything that's 5 or higher is okay. Okay, so they in the end take 2 hits. Now, in a more conventional game, my knights would be likely to have shields. These guys don't have shields because shields are going out of fashion by the time of War of the Roses, and even though I kept these guys armored mostly normally, I didn't, except for my knights, the mounted knights, I didn't give them shields where the figure didn't have a shield. But the shield would give you an additional roll. But anyway, I've lost 2, that's 2 hits. If they had taken a defense action, we would have reacted by spending an action here and they'd receive a bonus on that defense roll. But they did not take a defense action, they took an attack back. And so we get to resolve that now. So the casualties are removed. They don't get to count the casualties, but otherwise it's going to work the same way. So it's going to include the people who are in base to base or within one of a base to base. They've only got 5 in there. They need 3s and they have 5 of them. These are two-handed weapons except for the leader who has a sword, but his skill is still 3 anyway. The two-handed weapon lowers your attack, makes the attacks easier. They hit all but 1. The knights have to roll on their armor saves for 5 or higher. And they lose 1. Crosby's lost 2. Oxford has lost 1. Side that takes the most casualties is forced back. If it had been a draw, they would have both been forced back. Forced back means they move an inch plus an inch for every casualty they've taken in combat. So the group has taken 2 casualties, it's going to have to move back 3. If there was a friendly group in the way of that move, those friendly warriors would need to be do a compulsory to make sure they could finish at least 1 inch apart. The groups have to, I didn't mention that, but groups are supposed to be 1 inch apart. That may in fact actually happen here. If for some reason they couldn't be moved back, like they were trapped by buildings or whatever, they would gain yet another casualty. They can also be forced off the table this way. So they've dropped back 3 inches. Now, had there been more than 25% losses to the Oxford side, we would have to roll for that, but there have not been. So that is the end of that fight. So we're going to place a move order on Oxford's billmen. They are in rocky terrain, so that's going to lower their movement by a quarter. They're only wearing padded armor. That does still slow them down, but not as bad as the mail slows down. So this is going to be a green. I'm thinking about, well, I don't want to do a run. You can run, which will double your speed, but it makes you weary. And I don't think I want to do that yet. So they will lose an inch. Let's move 5. I'm just going to drop an inch. That's a fifth. That'd be. Let's just make it easy. Move 3. So that's all they're doing is moving forward. I'm going to go ahead and move my levy. The levy moves 6. They're going to move up behind the wall. I'm going to go ahead and activate the knights to move. This is the mounted knights I'm speaking of. The mounted knights move 7. Go ahead and move them. Bow move 6. I'm going to charge the bills in. They get a charge order. I cannot give an order back because we have already activated. So this may not have been a bad move. Their charge roll is 2. That gives them 7. So these guys can each move 7. The bills need 6 or higher to hit. This is where it's going to hurt them, is they're not as good at fighters. So 3 got through, and the knights defend on 5. One gets hit though, which means they lose. One gets knocked down, which means they have to fall back 2 inches. Wow, that was pretty cool. Not what I expected. The crossbows are going to move 5 inches up onto that hill. And lastly, the bowmen are going to move as well. And they don't have any easy time. They're going to have a crossover. That's all there is to it. They're in the process of crossing over. So the housekeeping phase, we take off all the tokens. We do morale rolls if we had any to make. The morale dice on the 2 units of knights have both been adjusted. They go up by 1. The group feels a little bit better. And we roll off again to see who has initiative. Okay, this time it is Crosby who has initiative. Now he's got a banner so he can control units within 12 inches of his range. Normally it would be 6 inches, but it expands to 12 inches. I think we're going to send the bills into the fight. They're going to close with the guys in front of them. They're going to react by fighting, because why not? They have to roll a d6. This would normally be for distance. This time it's for quality of charge. They get a 2, so the charge isn't affected. Actually can't counterattack because those are bills. They're going to have to do defend because the special rule for spears or for bills is that there is no counterattack when attacked unless you're also armed with spears or bills because of their reach. So we're going to do defense instead. That's going to cause them to lose a die. So how many do we actually have in? It's 9 of them. Still a lot. And that'll drop to 8. It drops to 8 because one of them is too far away to actually get into his combat. It drops 1 because of the defense that the knights are making. The Crosbys, these are the billmen. They need 6s to hit. 6s to hit. It's only 3 hits. Their armor save for the knights, 5 or higher. They take a hit. So they take 1 hit. And their die goes back to 2 where it was. He can use 1 more command to move another unit from further away. He's not going to go anywhere himself, I don't think. I'm going to give them a move. So they're going to start coming down the road. And so they're going to be able to charge in on their next action. We're going to do the archers. We're going to shoot the archers. Attack. They can't do anything because they've already gone. Oxford's bowmen are regulars, and they're going to hit on 7s, it looks like. That was the first round of 6. The second round, much bigger, better. Wow, that's a lot of hits. Mounted knights, they save on 4 or higher. 4s or higher. They take 4 hits. Wow. I gave them shields though, didn't I? 7s. Not sure that works, but we'll do it. So they take 2 hits. That was really rough. That hurts my commander. So they have to roll, to pull this off, they're going to have to beat a morale of 6. They do. They move 6. They're going to lose 2 inches though for crossing the hill. And they count as still crossing. They're going to attack. I'm going to attack over here. It's under 10. It's only got 7 that can see. They're going to do defensive, I think. Crosby's crossbows. These are veterans. They hit on 6s. At this range, 5s. All right, 4 hits. The armor save for my lizard billmen. They would normally save on 6s. The bodkins make it 5s. I'm sorry, make it 7s. 2 hits. Crosby's archers are going to start moving up towards that fence line, I think. They are green bowmen. They move 6. Could run, but that would be dangerous. I'm not going to. Their counting is crossing over still, so they can only move 4. Let's get them all across, though. So we take off the tokens. Morale dice go up to 1, or each go up 1. And now we roll again for... One of the things you can do with your command points is you can use them to get a higher chance of getting your successful roll. And that's what I'm going to do here. So we take the highest, but still not going to be good enough. So Crosby still has the initiative. Crosby can, again, going to order an attack. The response is going to be to defend again, because they're not going to be able to do more than that. We have to roll a d6 to find out if it affects. Nope. Does not affect the strength of the charge. Crosby has ordered his billmen forward into the Knights of Oxford. Oxford's guys, because of the weapon advantage of the bills, cannot do anything but defend. It's problematic for them. The people who manage to actually get into the fight, there are 10. All of them are in there. But they only get 9 dice because the defense. Oxford's men are in defensive. Crosby's bills, attack of 6. 4 hits. Four bills coming in, hitting knights. The knights save on a 5. Ouch. They take 3 more hits. So they have taken 4 out of 14. Yeah, that's over 25%. This is a morale roll. First morale roll of the game. They've lost over 25% of their peoples. So the first thing we do, a national attack, because the morale modifier was down on them. 5, that would have been a miss. So they were forced back a total of 3 inches. They were slowly being pushed across this table. Inches. So they fall back. They get to reform. That's a full movement, but they can't get closer to an inch of any of these groups. All right, now we have to do the morale roll. From now on, every time they take a casualty, they're going to have to make a morale roll on top of it. They do get to use their commander's morale, however. Anytime he's within 6 inches, and he's part of that unit, can use his, unless he fails the roll. If this is not made, then nobody will be able to use his morale's roll. They'll have to use the units. There are modifiers. A roll of 1 is always a fail, a 0 is always successful. The most common morale modifiers are the dice, so there's a -3 for the morale dice. Oxford's morale is 2, with 3 on it, so that goes to 5. We do not make it. He misses it by 2. They are broken, so they will be running. I'm not sure if they're running now or in the compulsory move of the next turn. I'm going to say it's that. I'm going to shoot at those bowmen again because that was pretty impressive. They can try to be defensive. The knights will go defensive against the archers shooting at them. These are Oxford's archers. They hit on a 7, 6 at this range. That's still only 3 hits. The knights defend on 4s. They take 2 hits. We'll use the shields. They take 1 hit. He's got a major morale issue here. The mounted knight's morale is 4 or higher. He makes it. He is oddly not frightened by that. Well, that was all out of order. That was actually led by the commander's order up there. So it should have been, he gave the order, they moved forward, all that happened, they reformed. He has his own maneuver. They're going to go ahead and move up. They're only going to move 4 inches. I think they could actually move 5, but they will then be gathered, 2 plucked up there. But the second action was to order them. And that's it for that turn, isn't it? So housekeeping phases. Housekeeping. These come off, but the broken does not. 4. That's still really bad. That comes off. That. And that comes off. That comes off. This goes to 1. We roll off again. I cannot use my command score this time because we're in a group that's broken and we're tied. So we'll have to roll again. Oh man, it's Crosby again. However, compulsory moves go first. So the first thing we're going to do is try to recover that broken. It now can't use the commanding officer, can't use Oxford's score, but they're still veteran foot knights, so it's still a 3. However, they're at a -2, so that's going to be 5. That's because they still have 2 on there. They do not make it, so they have to run. Veteran foot knights run 8 inches. That's going to be a problem. That's not good for Oxford. One more time, he will be off the table. That's the only compulsory move. We go to Crosby's orders. Crosby, what does Crosby want to do? I think Crosby wants to smack into those guys. First order that group to march into the levy. Levy's going to try to stand. I don't know if they'll be able to pull that off. They're going to charge in. This can't go well. Because it's defensive, it goes down to 6. Crosby's bills, they need 6s to hit. Oddly, they only hit the levy twice. The levy's defense is 7s. Oh my gosh, no hits at all. The levy, hold on. Oh, the crazy levy. I did not see that coming at all. The levy hold against the bills that just routed Oxford and his knights. So that was one order. There's still 3 left. He's going to use one of them just to move up. And he's going to use his 3rd one. You have to roll when you're given a command. So the bills would have needed 4 or higher. They would have. And then the knight's a 4 or higher. The knight doesn't do it. Knight loses his turn. Unwilling to charge in, which is, makes sense because there's only one guy there. So that is their commander done. Turn goes to us. Going to activate those bowmen again because they're doing really good. All right, 5s. Every single one of those hits. The knight saves. His armor saves of 5s. 1 hit. 2 hits. So he's got to stop both of these. Stops 1, but that ain't enough. So he is hit. That is a unit down. The knight has been dropped by the bowman. That is a whole unit wrecked. Group casualties. A friendly group is removed completely. Any friendly groups within 6 inches must make a morale check. If their morale check has failed, they become broken, receiving a broken token. Alright, so that's anybody within 6 inches. That may not be anybody. No, it's them. It is only them. So, Crosby's bowmen. They're green, which is not great. They have a 6, they have no casualties yet. 6 or higher, they're okay. And he is gone. We just lost most of the guys in this unit. They're going to have to roll a morale roll. Oh gosh, that is a failure. There was no way they were going to succeed that anyway. So they're in trouble, and they're running, and they're practically wiped out anyway. So housekeeping. Oxford's knights, they have a morale of 3 with a 2 on it, so they need a 5. 5. They just barely made that. This is actually when I think I would have made the roll for those guys. So they do not come back. Their die goes to 5, however. Markers come off. Roll for initiative first. I'm going to go ahead and spend one of his to give an extra die because he wants it. Did not need it. They won anyway,
but he needed that. Now the compulsory moves. Oxford's Billmen, they move at 5. They got -2 because of the rough ground. So they're only going to move 3 for the first round. And then they move 5. They are almost off the table. They've been chased off their position. All right, now for the normal activation. We're going to activate Oxford. He's used one of his commands already. Both of these groups should have fallen back an inch from that fight. But he's going to try to order them to combat Oxford. Oxford can't combat back, so they'll be forced to defend. Now we have to roll. This is going to be a little riskier than the other ones because this is a long way. For Billmen, they move at 5 normally. Oh, they're 6. They do not make it. That is a failed charge. Almost. That is a failed charge. There should be a difference in die. It's -2. So he'd get a plus on his attack die, but failed charges, you roll a d6 to see how far they actually make it. So they just went 5. They should have only gone 4, so they need to be an inch back. Okay, that was 1 for the die roll, 2 for that. I'm going to go ahead and move him as well to here. That would be their maneuver. Their whole turn done. I have dice I can use, and I'm going to use them to charge. That'll be a second turn, but I think I can do it because they won't be able to counterattack or anything. We will be weary, but I think this is worth it. So I'm at a -2. That's going to take 1 away from my attack roll. I have to roll a d6 still to see if we do worse than that. We got a strong charge, so that's going to be good for us. We come flying in. The 2 morale strikes should have caused me to lose a die on my attack. When I rolled a d6, though, I rolled a 6. So 1 would have cost me a die. A 6 gives me an extra die. So that extra die and this negative die counteract each other. The guys that are actually involved in this fight, these are my veteran foot knights, 3s. So we hit with 3s or higher, 6 hits. The Billmen is the first time they've been hit hard at all. And they save on 6s because they're just in leather and padded. That's still not bad. They only suffered 2 hits. So 2 guys in the front rank go down. They now suffer, finally, a strike dice. They can't hurt us, so we win that, which means they fall back 3 inches. They force this group back because of the 1-inch roll. They can reform. I don't think I need to. They are, however, weary. Anytime you do a second action, it makes you weary. So they're weary from having done 2 actions in a turn. I'm going to try to order them to fight. They have to roll. Those are my levy. I'm going to try to charge them into knights. They're not going to want to do that. Oh, they do. They have no problem with it. So they're going to charge into command group that has activated. So they can't fight back. That was well done. But that's actually only, I call that 4. All right, the levy only hits on 8s. 3 hits, wow. 3 hits that Oxford's guys are going to stop on 5s or higher. 2 hits, 2 get through. They actually killed 2 knights. They've lost 3 of 8. So they're in trouble. They have to roll. They get to use Crosby's morale, though, which is 3. 5, though. They do not make it. They are broken. And they fall back 3. They're going to have to reform into rule abeyance. That was my commander's action, so it falls to their actions. I'm going to go ahead and, I think, shoot. Crosby's bowmen are green. They need 9s to hit at this range. They did get, wow, they still got 4 hits. It's pretty good shooting. The bowmen they're shooting at save on 7s, and they only save 1. They take 3 hits. It's great shooting. It's 3 hits out of 12, so they have to roll their morale. They are 4s. They're now, wow, they can't make this. Well, they can't if they roll a 10, I mean. They don't. So they're broken. They can go ahead and move. So they're gonna go ahead and move. Recovery phases. This goes to 4. This goes to 1. This goes to 1. Roll off again for initiatives. Initiative is Crosby's yet again, but we have 2 compulsory movements. I'm going to have to roll for the morale of this group, and they have a -6. They are the billmen. I have to roll a 10. I did not. They're gone. This group has to roll their morale for having seen that. They can do it on the boss. He's a 2. Just barely. They're okay. I have to roll for them. They have a 3. They need a 6. That's not enough. So they rout. The bowmen rout for 12. They are off. Oxford's forces are collapsing all over the place. I have to roll over here. It's Crosby. Has to use the veteran knights though. Still, that's 3. That's not bad. They need 4 because of the -1. They don't make it. So they are running 8 inches off. I'm going to run by a bunch of peasants. That's embarrassing. Those are my compulsory moves. Important. He's going to activate his billmen first. The billmen are going to attack. The billmen are here. They're going to attack forward into this weary group of knights. The knights are going to do nothing. I keep defending them, which I think has been a bad move. We'll see if that's true or not. They lose. That counts as their activation is the problem. But this time I'm going to go ahead and try to just take this fight in the hopes that I can storm back, recharge them next time. They're going to have to roll for the strength of the attack. They do not get a 6, but they almost did. They are well within range. So they crash forward again. I have been cheating my defenders, though. It not only gives them an extra die, it gives them a better chance on their defense rolls, and I've been missing that. These are bills attacking on 6s. Ooh, 3 10s. I've been missing that too. Any 10 with a bill counts as 2 hits. So that is 7 hits. I may have made a mistake by not doing defensive here with my knights. These are veteran foot knights. They save on 5s. They're going to actually save on 6s because they're weary. They save nothing. 1. They saved 1. Wow. So that's going to go to 6. Just because that's the max the morale dice can ever be. We lost 6 people. That's going to hurt. All right, I'm going to argue that that was not the right action. I should not have done that. Bad news. That's a lot of losses. They're going to have to roll their morale. The morale is 2+. The modifier makes that, oh, they can't even make it. Well, they got to roll a 6. They did not. So they are broken. And they're going to fall back, and they're going to fall back a lot. They took about 6, so that's 7 inches. I think he just left the table. They did. They just left. That is probably the game right there. Because Oxford has left the table. That counts as being destroyed. Anybody within 6 inches, that's probably nobody within 6. All right, so there's that. I don't actually have a commander anymore because I was too cheap. I should have bought sergeants or secondary lords for this game, but I did not. So I don't have anyone to actually take command over. All right, so now it falls to my levy. My levy is in good shape. They can charge somebody. I can either charge the billmen, which I think is dangerous, except that they've already acted. They won't be able to counterattack or defend. They have no morale issues. Their opponent is +1, is 1 die, so that's going to give them a plus on their attack. They're going to try to charge in. They need to roll for the strength of their charge. They get 2. That's a shame. They could have used more than that. That would have also given them 6 inches of movement, but I don't think they need it. No. Levy move at 6, so they're well within range. So they're going to come in here. So the guys that are actually in contact, that is 6 dice. They get an extra die because of the difference in because of the -1 on the billman. But the levies they only hit on 8s. All right, only 1 hits. 6 or higher to save. They do. So no difference. This is a tied fight, so they both fall back, but they both only fall back an inch because there were no casualties. It's their response. I'm going to go ahead and charge those guys to the back, I think. No. Yes. I'm going to go ahead and try to charge from the back with the knights. They have to roll for the strength of their charge. They get a 3. Their movement is only 4, so that turns it to 7. They do make it though. Now this time they're at a -1, so they're going to lose a die. One, 2, 3, 4, but all 5 of them are in the fight. They lose a die though. On the other hand, they hit. All right, they all hit on 3s. 3 or higher. That is 3 hits. Levy are low, non-armored. So they save on 6s. They only save 1. They take 2 hits. That gives them 2 morale dice. And it makes them fall back, which they can't actually do. Now this is interesting. This is important. They have to fall back 3 inches. They lost 2 people, so it's 1 inch for each person and plus a normal inch just for fallback in general. 3 inches put them in base-to-base contact with them, which they cannot do, which means they can actually only move 2 inches, which means they're going to take another casualty because they're trapped. There's no one to activate on their turn. I can go ahead and shoot with the crossbows. How many crossbows actually have line of sight? 10. This shot is hindered because of the wall. Gives a little bit of defense to our pals. I don't know whether to call it a defensive position. It should only be the guys up against the wall that get the defensive position, but well, no, I guess they would have to be this way. So that's going to give them a plus defense, plus 2 to the defense rolls, what's going to happen. So these are the crossbow. They are veterans. They need 6s to hit. Is that right? They need 5s to hit. This could be devastating. 6 hits with the crossbow are levy protect at 7 or higher. That's going to be 5 or higher because of the wall. They only take 1 hit. Good roll on that. So they take one hit.
They're going to take morale roll because of their condition, though, and this should hurt them.
They are at a -4.
Their morale is 6. They need 10. They are unsuccessful, so they are now broken. We'll go ahead and move these guys into combat. I'm going to move them to here, but frankly, I don't think there's a need. I think I might as well call this done. There's no way the levy are getting out of this, and they probably would have surrendered anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and call this fight over. There you have it. A game of Baron's War fought in the War of the Roses. This is the first game I've ever actually played, but it certainly looks to me, and this matches some of the things I've heard said about this game, that it has a lot of give and take. It's not like a lot of games where the morale starts sinking and immediately you're lost. Morale is not that hard to recover from until you're losing it all over the place. So I think that's an interesting part of the game. I think it makes it more interesting. It's funny how one side's winning and one side's losing, and it switches around back on you. I also like the fact that in the end, my levy did surprisingly well. There's no limit for your group sizes. There's a requirement that they have a minimum amount. Foot units all have to have at least 3 figures, and the mounted have to have at least 2 figures to make a group. But there's no maximum, save the coherency rules. 12 figures in a unit is hard to manage, particularly if there's scenery you're moving through, like when we were moving down the roads between parallel walls. That was really hard. We were actually occasionally in violation, I think, of the coherency rules. So 12 is difficult, except in open terrain, and I don't see how you could at all do more than 12. But it is a game where having more people in a unit is useful. I say that. My 6-man group of foot knights actually held up much better, including against a 12-man unit of foot knights, than I'd expected. So not sure what the optimum number for a unit is at present. We'll play again and we'll find out. I know that I did a lot of things wrong. Some of them I learned as I went. Some of them I probably still missed. This was the first time I played. I didn't even get a chance to do a practice game. Now that things are cooling down a little bit with COVID, my work schedule, my normal job is increased. And so it's more challenging to get time to come together to do these videos and to edit them and get them online. And I'm still pushing to try to get one video at least up a week. If you notice things I did wrong or have questions about the game or any other comments you'd like to make, maybe you have this game yourself, go ahead and put those in the comments down below. Also, if you have ideas for further content you'd like to see us cover here on Cry Havoc Wargaming, we'd love to see those. If you've enjoyed the video or got any use out of this video, go ahead and hit like, please. And if you'd like to receive further notifications of videos like this one that might help you decide how to better use your time or money in your wargaming hobby, then please subscribe. Until next time, cheers.